imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow. I'm your host, Andy, podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave, coming at you from the heart of Texas.
So today, this is going to be a fun episode. It's something that we don't do a whole lot. We don't have episodes where we just talk about movies and have fun with it. It's going to be horror movies, but with a little bit of a twist to it. We're going to talk about something called guilty pleasures. And I know that most people know what that is. It's basically like movies that everybody understands that they're not great movies, but for some reason you hold them near and dear to your heart, and you just you carry this torch for this movie, but it could be the crappiest movie ever. But me and Dave, and also we have a very special guest on this episode. It is Brian from the Terrible Terror Podcast. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's me and Dave are big fans of your show, and so we wanted to get you on here for an episode, and I thought this would be a fun episode to do with you, so yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I've been trying to get my list together, and it's been relatively hard. Like picking every unique horror film, I'm going to use that term instead, that I love that maybe I shouldn't.
Well, Andy, I'm just going to jump in there and say, I don't know who the hell this is, so who is this guy right here? I've never heard of him before in my life.
Yeah, so Terrible Terror Podcast, the Brian show, he will take a movie and usually a bad movie, like a bad sci-fi horror movie, or just genre pictures in general, but he focuses on horror movies. And he will kind of do a play-by-play through the movie and just basically pretty much make fun of it. So that's the best part of it. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun to listen to. I get a lot of laughs out of it, so I would encourage everybody to go check it out. Definitely.
Is this that guy that talks about corn trees?
Oh yeah.
It's the corn trees guy.
I heard of him.
Oh man, that was great. That was great.
I'm also the guy that talks about candy corn being the root of all evil, thanks to Rob Zombie.
Oh yeah. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, corn trees, their latest episode, Brian and Dave actually teamed up to talk about Freddy vs. Jason. So it was an awesome episode. I laughed a lot, so I would say check it out. And you get to hear about something called corn trees. So
God damn it. I'm never gonna live that down.
No, you won't. I actually think the episode is more entertaining than the film, to be honest with you.
You know, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I need to rewatch it.
So, you want to kick things off?
Me?
Either one.
We'll let the guests go first.
Go.
Oh, great. All right, so I'm going to get my anthology movie out of the way. And this one's from 1995. I love this as a kid. I still love it today. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's Tales from the Hood, if you've ever seen Tales from the Hood. I just always remember the guy that connects the segments together because they break into somebody's house and there's this old, African-American gentleman with really white hair, really crazy eyes, does this really bad voice. It's almost like, he's trying to do like a Blackula type of thing, and he introduces and leads them through the different stories. I don't know why I still love this movie, even as bad as it is, but absolutely fantastic.
So, in relation to that, I remember this movie because I was a kid and I used to go swimming every day in the summer, and it was awesome. I'd swim from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then my grandmother would pick me up, and I would always get Domino's pizza and rent a movie. and it wasn't a Blockbuster. It was some either grocery store or like a CVS type store that had a video store in it. And I remember renting Tales from the Hood and going home and watching it. And my biggest memory of this movie, and I believe, and I quote, "I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna piss on his grave." Is that, do I have that right? Is there a scene where a cop, I think,
Yes,
pees on a grave? And
I think that's in the first story, that RoboCop Revelation.
So that's my story with Tales from the Hood. Is I think a cop gets his junk grabbed in that movie.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, like Dave, I remember renting this I was like had a sleepover with a friend or something, and I remember renting this movie, and I don't remember much about it, but I just remember like, was there a segment with Corbin Burnson in it, and he's like, I may have the people mixed up, but he gets like attacked by this little doll or something like that.
I think you might have it mixed with a different one.
Okay.
There are dolls in it, though. I do remember dolls.
Because there was the one about, there's the story about the KKK that get there. It's called KKK Comeuppance.
Okay.
The other story is Boys Get Bruised, which is
David Allen Greer is a stepdad, right? Turns into a monster.
Yep, that's the one.
In living color.
Then you got Hardcore Convert, which is another one. They all involve gang members in some way, shape, or form. And then the other one, they call the ending Welcome to My Mortuary, where he shows that they're actually in hell itself, after they've done all their wrongdoings.
Every time I talk to Brian or listen to his show, I have to rent something else from Netflix. That sucks. Like, you're building my DVD queue of terrible movies, 1 or 2 DVDs a month. I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So, paper, scissors, or how you want to do this?
I can go next, I guess.
All right.
Have you guys heard of a movie called Dr. Giggles?
Yeah.
Is that the dentist movie?
No, it's one with Larry Drake, and he's a doctor.
I remember on the cover it shows his face. It's only like the eyes looking like that, right?
Yeah.
He's always
okay. I know this. Just looking at the poster for it, I remember this film. It's been a while since I've seen Dr. Giggles.
And it's pretty ridiculous because his whole shtick or whatever is that he giggles when he kills somebody. He has this really like silly giggle. But yeah, so Dr. Giggles is played by Larry Drake, and he does a pretty good job with it.
Do you remember, Andy, in that movie, is there a dramatic scene with a phone booth or something? I know that's very specific, but like when you guys bring up the movie, these scenes, because I remember Dr. Giggles was on like HBO, but at that time, believe it or not, I was younger, and I don't think I was fully watching horror movies yet, but I remember getting stuck and seeing something about that.
From what I remember, and it's been a while since I've seen this one too, but I don't think there was a phone booth scene in this one.
All right.
But I remember there was a scene where this guy, he goes to the bathroom, like he's making out with his girlfriend, they're getting ready to have sex.
I'm intrigued.
He goes to the bathroom to take a leak or whatever, and he comes back and he sees who he thinks is his girlfriend in the bed and lifts off the sheet and it's Dr. Giggles and like sticks him. I think I can't remember if it like stabs him in the crotch or what's going on. But
yeah.
Are we gonna skip over the fact that moment that you said that he went to the bathroom, Dave? When I'm intrigued, like
yeah, we are. hey, you guys just named 2 movies back to back where somebody gets jacked up in the crotch. So I'm just
and I've almost forgot. I almost forgot this movie.
My list.
This movie does star Dougie Doug too. I don't know if you guys know. It was like Dougie. It's like his only horror movie like credit, but
like Marky Mark.
I
don't think he was a rapper. Yeah, he should have been with that name.
He probably. I can't believe that this film actually grossed $8 million. Like at the box office, that's crazy.
And I mean, obviously at the time I was like, I don't know, probably 12 or something, so I had to rent it. I couldn't go to the theater to see it, but yeah, Dougie Doug, he was on the Cosby Show. That's where he got his start.
Oh.
And but this is pretty much the only horror movie he's been in. And of course, he died pretty quick, and it was a pretty lame death. He just got a syringe in the arm from Dr. Giggles, and like he started like coughing up blood or something.
That is kind of lame.
But there is a scene in this movie where there's like a morgue scene where there's like this body of Dr. Gould's mother, and I can't remember the specifics, but I think there was a fire, and so they took his mother's body out of the fire, and they couldn't find the kid. Dr. Gould was the kid at this time, but he had actually like hidden himself in his mother's body. And so, like, when the body was in the morgue, there's the scene where, like, he cuts, like, you see this scalpel come out, like, the blade come out of her stomach and just, like, open, like, he crawls out of his mom in the morgue. It's a pretty creepy scene.
We've all done that. Technically.
Yeah, I just did it last week. Shit.
Oh, so you're 1 week old.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man. Well.
So I'm going to segue those two films together and take your surgical aspect and then combine the possible Corbin Bernstein mentioning there. And I'm going to go with The Dentist. So I know that The Dentist is not a great horror movie, but it's a good horror movie. And Dr. Alan Feinstein is troubled by things in life, and he decides to take it out on his patients, and he's slowly losing his grip. And I love the movie because, one, he's a good actor, but two, man, he's just got a scalpel, and he's just flaying at people, and oral surgery is scary anyway. And so just the revenge on the wife thing that he does because she cheats on him with the pool man, and he straps her down in the chair, and, you know, you get things like Decay is always busy, so we're always busy, and he's just a creepy dude, and everybody out there can potentially be afraid of The Dentist. So I think the movie works, and this is one that as a kid I did watch a few times, so it's definitely a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I think I've seen this movie one time. It's been a while.
There's two of them.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, it surprises me that it took until like the 90s for them to make a movie about the dentist, because that's one of the most like, yeah, it took them until 1996 to make a horror movie about the dentist, because it's one of the most, I don't know, it's just I don't like going to the dentist, and so that just seems like low hanging fruit there for a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, but it only took him 2 years to make a sequel. So what's up? But it's even got Ken Foree in it. He's a cop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Detective Gibbs.
That's right. And Mark Ruffalo's in it, too.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he wears
I think that's more surprising than Ken Foree.
He wears, like, pink scrubs or something, and he's in the office. But... yeah, so for me, my first guilty pleasure, The Dentist.
That is definitely a film that I actually have not seen. I think I've always avoided it because it's about the dentist, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, it could be a little close to home for some people, because some people actually go to the dentist. I should do that once.
All right, so for my next one, I'm going to go into the franchise section, and probably going to be maybe, depending on how many we go, but I did the second one, but the first one is my love, Leprechaun in the Hood. There's something about this film. There's something about Ice-T in the way that he acts in this film. He acts like Ice-T talks every fucking day. Just like I had high hopes for the second one to be like, oh, okay, he's going back to the hood. Maybe he'll get somebody. And it just, in the Leprechaun universe, it just went way downhill. But this one was more of like definitely in that mix of, the Leprechaun's still not quite annoying yet. It's it's very fun as well as ridiculous at the same time. The fact that it's all about a magic flute that makes a guy rap better for some reason. It's just ultimately ridiculous, but it's one of those movies that if it comes on, I'm going to sit and I'm going to watch through it no matter what part it's at.
Yeah, I don't think I've not watched Leprechaun in any of the Hood movies. I guess I'm missing out. I need to check those out.
You're missing out with at least the first one. Yeah. The second one, you can miss out 100%. Just listen to the podcast episode and you'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
So that flute that he has, is that from Super Mario 3 where you can play it in Warp Worlds, or is it just to rap better?
No, it's just to rap better.
Different game.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually I've seen the first 4, and I didn't watch In the Hood, but I did listen to your episode on Back to the Hood, and so yeah, I'll have to check it out just to see what all the hype's about, because I'll totally take a flute if it can make me rap better, because I stink.
I guess I'll since you brought in a franchise, well, I'll go with my first one here. I'm gonna say that I really like Halloween 6, the theatrical cut. I actually don't like the producer's cut. I watched it, I just couldn't get into it. Now the reason why I like this one so much is because it was the first Halloween movie I actually saw. I saw it in the theater, and I don't know, it just had like a. I liked how Michael Myers looked in it. He didn't, in H2O, I just completely hated the way he looked in that one. I think there was like, I don't know, it like being the first Halloween movie, it like freaked me out at the time, but going back and watching it now, I realize it's not the greatest movie, but watching the producer's cut, everybody likes that one better. But when I watch the producer's cut, I'm just like, man, it doesn't have the same, it doesn't have the same tone. They make Michael Myers like part of the cult, and I always like that aspect of the theatrical cut where it seems like they just like tried to control him, but they couldn't quite control him, so he ended up killing them all like during the course of the movie. I don't know, what did you guys think about Halloween 6?
Dave, why don't you go first?
Oh man, I love Halloween 6. So I got fond memories of Curse of Michael Myers. It was the first Halloween movie I owned on VHS. I had seen the first and second one, and someone knew I liked Halloween and got it for me for Christmas or something. And I remember I the night I watched it, I also did one of those like paint by numbers. Like I was a cool kid by myself, right? I was watching Halloween 6 and then paint by numbers in our apartment. But I loved it. And it's funny, too, because, Andy, I want to ask you real quick. On that producer's cut, the one that you saw, was all the – because I know a lot of the movies the same, and then I know the differences. Like, they put in rock music sometimes, and then they change that last, like, let's say 25% of the movie. They wrap it up with the Curse of Thorn more in depth. In the version you saw, was the quality really bad, or was the video quality the same all the way through?
Now with the Blu-ray they have of the producer's cut now, it's good quality. But for a long time they just had that burn-on-demand DVD thing that you could buy, and it was really crappy quality. So it was even hard. So with that, it's even hard to tell what was going on.
That's why I asked, because back in 2002, I got the producer's cut. And I remember there's some random horror movie that had a preview of it, and it was called Halloween 666. And I'm like, what the hell is that?
Oh, yeah.
And it showed some of the scenes of the Man in Black and everything. Not the Man in Black from the Dark Tower, but a different Man in Black. There was no Matthew McConaughey. That probably would have been cool. But I remember I had to track it down. And, dude, I paid $60 for it, for a DVD. And I remember when it showed up, and it was burned and had like a printed cover. I was so pissed, but it gave me that feel because I saw the movie I knew, but with a completely different tie-in. And I do like the theatrical version better for sure, but it was an interesting thing for them to do, and it kind of made sense more with the Man in Black for it from 5 to tie it in that way of the switcheroo. And I won't say too much more, but I agree with you. I think it's an awesome movie.
So you guys are going to be surprised, but I have not seen Halloween 6.
I am
Curse
surprised.
of Michael Myers. Yeah, I mean, I went through, I think I've seen the first 2, and then I kind of dropped off on the Halloween series. I've never been a huge Michael Myers fan, but I really love the original, and we actually got to, a couple years back on Halloween, they did a whole theatrical thing where went to the theater, saw it again, saw the cut, so I got to actually experience the original one in the theaters. But my buddies, more than I, are the Michael Myers guys, and as Dave knows, I'm the Freddy guy. Yeah. So that might be one of the reasons why I kind of went around, but I need to actually go through all of the Halloween films in like a marathon. I'm still catching up with some of the classics, but it's definitely something that's on my list now. The main difference between the theatrical cut and the producer's cut is just that they've fleshed out the story more, or that they've changed like the way the story actually works, like the flow of everything?
Yeah, so they changed the way that the story basically flows. But at the same time they flesh out more of the cult of Thorn. So in the theatrical cut, it seemed like Michael Myers was like they had hidden him away somewhere, but they didn't really explain like where he was at all this time, and they didn't. I guess they did say that Michael was like Jamie's, how Jamie got pregnant in part 6, and I think they've said even in the theatrical cut that Michael was the father, but in the producer's cut they actually show it's not like a love scene or whatever, but I think
but they show some setup going on.
Yeah, but they show like this whole ritual, and like Michael Myers is just standing beside these cult members, just like he's part of the cult, and it's dumb.
It keeps the mask on, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. There's some TLC that goes on at least though with the whole lovemaking. It's not just like Dave so nicely did there, just unzip and let's go. Was it Jamie that said no, keep the mask on?
Well, it's just crazy, man, because they talk about in Halloween 6 the Curse of Thorn, and how the reason he kills on Halloween night is because of a constellation of stars that form a symbol, which is tattooed on his wrist. And I mean, if you want to believe it, it's kind of cool. But they go really far into the whole druids and the society that hides Michael Myers, like Andy was saying, and it gives you just more in-depth into that and a different ending completely. So it's definitely like, if you see the theatrical, you owe it to yourself to see the producer's cut. But if you were asking our opinion, we would say just see the theatrical at least,
Yeah, and even in the theatrical cut, you get to hear all of that mythology explained by Paul Rudd.
Oh, sweet.
Paul Stephen Rudd.
Yeah.
I know that because I tried to get him on our show and he turned me down.
Oh, he's a Kansas City native. Dang, I'm gonna have to.
Oh, really? Let me try that again. So, since you said that your friends were Halloween people and you so much weren't, I was gonna make sure I was included in that. Here's my Halloween script that's autographed.
Jesus!
Oh yeah, Jesus, that's right. It's exact too. I love it. So that puts Brian next, right? Or is that me now?
That's you.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so since we're doing franchises, I'm going to totally set myself up to get hated right here. Even though it is considered the worst Nightmare on Elm Street, I still like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
Okay. See, I don't know if that's necessarily it's a weird one, but I wouldn't say it's like a terrible thing. They tried something different.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why people hate it, right? Because 1 is so good and 3 is so amazing, and the in-between is no filler. And there's a lot of weird things in that movie that people pick up on, little tropes and tones. But I'm like, it's still a Freddy movie. And at this point, it's still better than Freddy versus Jason.
You also get the very first, I guess you could say, Scream King, with who he inhabits. Yeah. I mean, it had a lot of interesting ideas. It's not necessarily executed the best, but I think we hadn't at that point experienced a horror movie from that angle before. Because even nowadays, horror movies still follow a lot of the same tropes, where you know that there's going to be a final girl in there that's going to experience everything, that's going to be the one that you're going to see through their eyes, and we don't actually get that with this film. And maybe that's something, especially around the time of the slasher. It was unexpected and not well received.
Yeah, I'm going to have to revisit this one because I've seen it one time and I wasn't a big fan of it. I don't know why exactly, but...
Man, it's got some awesome scenes that'll take you back and it'll make you want to rewatch it if I start telling you about when he's at the swimming pool party and he just starts cutting people up and there's like a grill and a fire and then they touch the fence and I don't know, like I just hear so many bad things about it and I'm like, but it's still a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, so it's still very enjoyable.
I think the funny thing about it is you have to compare it to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, right? Like it in terms of Freddy coming into the real world, right? It happens, and the New Nightmare isn't technically a canon film, right? But it brought back Freddy into the limelight of being scary again. and he actually invaded the actual real world, technically. And yet that one is like well praised, and Nightmare on Elm Street 2 doesn't get that same type of praise for doing something completely different.
Yeah, I talking about New Nightmare, it's like I had thought that I really liked that one because I had seen it one time, and then I rewatched it here recently, and I didn't really like it that much at all. I don't know. It was I thought that the acting was like Heather Langenkamp. I thought her acting was really bad, and also that little kid. I thought he was kind of a ham. I don't know. So yeah,
little kids in horror movies, man.
Yeah,
that could be a whole nother discussion altogether.
It's a novel idea. Oh. All right. So do you guys agree with me? I know, Andy, you said it's been a long time since you've seen it, but can you guys both appreciate Nightmare Part 2? Is it in my...
I mean...
I think you can.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to say about it, so... I'll have to watch it again.
I mean, the bonus is I think a lot of them right now are either on Netflix or Amazon Prime, a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. So anybody can go back and revisit them. And I think it's worth a watch at least once, just to maybe get an opinion of it if you decide to skip over it and go right to the Dream Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
Right.
I will check that out.
All right, so I guess I'm up next. And I've got to look at my list and figure out which way I want to go. Let's do a Stephen King. Sleepwalkers. Sleepwalkers is my favorite bad Stephen King movie that there is out there, and that's partially because of, I think, how much my sister and I watched it growing up. Like, it's literally one of those films where we went into the theater. I must have seen it at least 4 or 5 times in the theater. And then when it came out on video, it was one of the first things that, my sister and I gravitated towards. My sister was the bigger Stephen King reader. I was the bigger Stephen King viewer. But like you said earlier, Dave, like with Dark Tower, like that's my jam in terms of Stephen King books, and that was the one I always anticipated waiting for the next one to come out. But with this, it was, it was this past Maximum Overdrive. We can say that this is like first kind of true foray again, coming back into writing a movie that is specifically for the screen. It wasn't for, he didn't have a story in mind. It was based on a story he was writing, but he turned it into a screenplay. So it's really cheesy. The cat makeup is horrible. It's got way too much humor for what it is and not enough scary parts. But for some reason, I still love this. I love the scenes with Clovis the cat and the guy that's the cop. And it's just a fantastic film that I could watch anytime, no matter. And I know how bad that movie is, and I can still watch it and still enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. This one is like really like just went completely under my radar. I remember when it came out when I was a kid, but for whatever reason, I just have never sat down and watched this one.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah. My grandfather was a huge movie collector, so I assume that's where I got it from. And he had the VHS, and he showed it to me, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of crazy, and I remember I'm like, "That's a mom and son, right?" Like, okay. I mean, I guess if you're a cat, it doesn't count. So,
it's just a transfer of energy, right?
That's it. But I think the thing too is. Even the worst of the worst type Stephen King movies still have some kind of charm hidden in there, except for maybe one. And if you want to know what that is, Brian does review it. But anyway.
Are we talking about shit weasels here?
We're not, but we are. But yeah, I need to watch Sleepwalkers again, but I do have the fond memory of when I watched it, and it wasn't a bad movie, so... Definitely something that can easily be a guilty pleasure for anybody that likes Stephen King movies overall. So,
all right. Well, since we're on the topic of Stephen King, I think I'll bring up a franchise that I think is not looked at too fondly, but that's the Children of the Corn franchise.
Oh yeah,
I really like the first movie. I love it. And then I also like parts 2, 3, and 5. I think, especially part 3, the kid, like the main bad kid, is really good in that one. And part 2 is bad, but it's so entertaining to me. Just like some of the overacting, especially with like the kids in part 2, they're just really like chewing at the scenery, like especially the main kid. And like in that movie they introduced some like CG effects that are really crappy. Really show like what they were like back in the early 90s, and when they first started to try to put them into movies. And so, but it has a lot of charm to it, I think, because of all of those things, those negatives that you could say, make for a fun watch. Part 5, it was an interesting one. I think a lot of people kind of don't like it, but it has David Carradine in it as like he's like the leader for the children in this one. It's kind of weird.
Isn't Eva Mendes in part 5?
Yes. And yes, yeah.
Wow.
So it's
the Gathering thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they tried to make it scream amongst the corn trees or something. I don't know, but
Hashtag corn trees.
Yeah, they tried to make.
Damn it!
they tried to make a Scream, version of Children of the Corn, because I think that was right around when Scream came out, when that one came out. But
yeah,
I'm a fan of Children of the Corn, like the first one. I know that a lot of times people kind of crap on it, but anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think of Children of the Corn?
Well, I can't believe that there are currently 9 films, and there's a 10th one on its way, which is Children of the Corn Runaway. I absolutely love the first film. I can't hate it. It's so over the top. It's so the kids are fantastic, like you say. Just the main kid, the way he says Malachi is, of course, like one of the best things in all of cinema. And how could you not love it even more after watching the South Park spoof of it that they did way back in the day, but having to do with kids calling sexual harassment on their parents and getting them out of the town that way. But it's a fun franchise, and I can't believe that there's this many goddamn films. Like I didn't even know there was a 5th one. I really honestly thought it ended after the 4th one. But I see there's Children of the Corn 5, Fields of Terror, followed by Children of the Corn 666, because they can't just do 6. They have to do 666. And that's Isaac's Return.
Yeah,
So Isaac.
That one was a disappointment, though. I feel like they really could have capitalized with Isaac, and because he did play such a cool role in the very first movie, and but I think now that that he's older in the movie, it just didn't have as much. It wasn't really creepy anymore. It was, I don't know, it just didn't have the same effect.
So my biggest memory of Children of the Corn was part 3, and that's because I watched it in German. I was in Germany at the time, literally in Germany, and I was bouncing around from family members, and I was staying with my who I realize now is alcoholic, but at the time is cool guy, uncle, and he left me alone and went bar hopping. And so I'm just chilling. And the best thing about Germany is if you're like 13 years old, there's no sensory on television. There is just anything you want to see on TV. Or if you don't want to see, it's there. And Children of the Corn 3 was on, and I watched that whole movie in German with no subtitles.
Oh, wow.
And so it was quite an experience. And between every probably 15, 20 minutes, there was a 1-800 hotline number commercial on. So.
All right. So when are we all going to Germany?
Yeah, let's go. I can think of a few reasons.
Wow.
But I definitely want to get on the Stephen King train. I actually had like 3 or 4 Stephen King movies wrote down because I think all of his movies are kind of guilty pleasures. But I want to start with Silver Bullet. So I love Silver Bullet. It's such a cool movie. I love werewolves anyway. And I like Gary Busey, even though he's a oddball from hell. I think he's kind of awesome, and I love the whole motorized wheelchair that goes really fast, and the whole setting there. Silver Bullets is one of my favorite Stephen King movies.
Can I say, how did his son end up almost exactly like him? Like, he's a little bit different, but not quite much. And I'm pretty sure as he gets older as well, he's gonna just somehow transform to Gary Busey. We're just going to find out it's a clone.
The Busey DNA is very strong.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Silver Bullet, I think it's a classic werewolf movie. It doesn't get talked about as much as, like, American Werewolf in London or The Howling.
The Howling.
But, yeah. And, and I think part of that is because the werewolf effects are a little sketchy, I guess. But for the most part, it's
practical.
Yeah, they're definitely practical, which is a plus. But I just remember like seeing like the werewolf feet like going through the woods, and it looked pretty silly. But I love that movie. I'm not going to knock it one bit.
Corey Haim's awesome, and the scenes they did with like the creepy bridge and stuff. I love the atmosphere of that movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think even for 1985, the practical effects, I think that's what kind of hurts it. There were films around that time that had much better effects for the wolves and for monsters in general. But again, it's one of those films where if you suspend that disbelief of the practical effects, I think that you will find a very enjoyable film in it. And it's worth it enough just to watch Gary Busey do his thing in that film.
Awesome. So far, at least I can say, I have my list still beside me. We haven't all had one that was like all on our list yet, right?
No, not yet.
So we're still 0 for 0. Okay, go ahead. Let's see what you got.
All right. Next up, I'm going to go with the 13 Ghosts remake with, God, what's his name? Shaggy.
Matthew Lillard.
And also Monk.
That's right.
There's something about that film. It's another one of those films where if I find it on TV, I can sit and I can watch the whole thing. It's not, the original is a good film, but it definitely shows a little bit of its age when you watch it. This film, I think it was so creative with the way that they did the ghosts and the way that they made the ghosts look. And I think that's what really kind of draws me into that film, as well as they did a really good blend of humor and it being sometimes genuinely scary, especially when seeing in theater, not so much on home. I mean, horror movies lose a lot of that at home unless it's a really good horror film. But this is definitely a guilty pleasure of mine that I absolutely love. And I was also going through a Matthew Lillard phase at the time because he was, being in Scream and then even Scooby-Doo and those films. He had a lot of like little either bit roles or like side character roles that he did such a good job with. And this is one of those films that I really like how he does the roles.
Yeah, whatever happened to Matthew Lillard? I want to see him, do movies.
He's behind the camera now. He's still he has long credits of voicing Shaggy in the animated newest Scooby-Doo, and so between directing and voice acting, he's still around.
Oh, okay,
but he's not that crazy bastard from She's All That anymore, who we loved. A guy. He has a tattoo of himself, and he's like, "Give it to me, give it to me."
Oh, jeez.
Okay, well, I should go as Matthew Lillard for Halloween. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's actually going to be in a Scooby-Doo movie as Shaggy's voice called Scooby-Doo Shaggy Showdown coming out this year.
The fun never ends with Matthew Lillard.
Oh, and he was in a movie in 2015 called Blood-Sucking Bastards. I may have to check that out.
Yeah.
But he's uncredited in the movie.
Well, just a little side note for all you Matthew Lillard fans out there who may not know this. There was a separate Scream planned for, I think it was 3 originally, where Matthew Lillard didn't die, which, 2 TV falls on your head, right? You're going to die. But where he didn't die, and he ends up he's in prison, and a crazy fan writes him letters, and the fan and him helps him get out, and they become the killers. That was an actual written script for a Scream movie. And if you watch Scream 2, there is a scene where they're having the party, like the pool and everything. Everybody's dancing. You know, the one where I can say it right. It's been out for a long time. Where the boyfriend gets cut on the arm and everything. That scene where Matthew Lillard, you can see him dancing at the party. He's there. Wow. He's wearing glasses. That kind of throws you off. It's the dark frame glasses. But if you watch that scene and watch for him dancing, you can clearly see him.
Wow.
Yeah. So I too was. Yeah, Matthew Lillard geek. So,
no, I mean, this was a cool movie. I still have not seen the original 13 Ghosts. I don't know why, but I just have not seen it yet. But yeah, I like this one. It was, I too saw this in the theater, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It was really freaky. You know, some of those ghosts the effects are pretty good with them. The makeup effects and stuff.
They're absolutely great. That's like my favorite thing is how well they designed each of the ghosts. Like especially when you're going down the hallway in the bottom, and they're showing each of them. They're kind of panning. You got the one with the cage. That's always the one. Yeah, I think that stands out the most. Yeah. And probably also because a buddy of mine decided to do that for Halloween one year, and my wife helped do the makeup for him and everything. So.
Yeah, I think back about this because I saw it at an AMC theater. 3D wasn't out yet, and it's a shame because the movie uses the whole quote unquote 3D look. How cool would it have been to where the ghosts always are in 3D? That'd have been intense.
Or it would have been like say like the back when we talked before, back in the day when they did those specialized screenings of theaters where they have the people running through the audience and stuff like that. I could take like a film like this and to do that as well and have people maybe in the makeup come out and run through the audience as the ghost. And
your buddy should have did that.
Should have done that, yeah.
But I love the remake as well. I love the original and the remake. Actually, big fans of both of them. The original is tremendously different, but it does have that hokey cool stuff because the original did have a 3D feel where you put the glasses on and it was the one with the red and the blue lens and you could see it. And if you took the glasses off, it was like, what? Like, if you don't want to see, look through the blue lens. If you do want to see the ghost, look through the red lens. And so I remember I had watched it because I had seen the remake first. And I was like, man, I got to get the original. And I watched it, and I was able to enjoy it for what it was. So,
yeah, that's something that I miss, or not that I was around when it happened, but man, I wish they would do that with movies now. Like, have these like gimmicks and stuff in the theater. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be the coolest thing ever if they just all they need to. I mean, they're kind of getting there with like say those Rumble theaters. If you ever go to those, what they call the D-Box or whatever, and that's not quite there, but if they could take something like that and then still have the showmanship of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show, you have the people there doing whatever they need to do with the audience, and then you still have the effects from the film, it would be awesome.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Business idea, guys. Business idea.
Yeah. Well, so talking about remakes, I've got a couple on my list, but the one I'm going to talk about here is it's a remake of a Christmas horror movie, and it's called Black Christmas from 2006. I know that it definitely doesn't measure up to the original, and they did change the story somewhat because they actually showed the killer, and but man, I like this one. This was a good modern slasher movie, I felt like.
Yeah, I remember I had rented it from Blockbuster. For those of you who are old enough to remember what Blockbuster is, it was the greatest place ever, even though the rentals were like $5 a piece. And I hadn't seen the original at the time, so when I watched it, it was my only exposure to Black Christmas, and so I loved it. But then since then, I went back, of course, and saw the original, and obviously the original is a superior film, but the things that they did do in the remake I did find interesting, because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there more incestual relations in the remake? Like isn't he so. Like the kid that's grown up but something's wrong with him, and the mom, yeah, right? So Brian, you have to like it, right? It's just right up Sleepwalker Alley.
Oh, because there's incest in it. Automatically, if there's corn trees, if there's incest, if there's rapping little leprechauns, I'm totally down. Okay.
All of the above makes one hell of a movie.
There's other things that make me like movies as well. There's also like fake turkeys too. Only for one, but not for both.
Oh man.
No, I think that as remakes go, I think it's a pretty good remake. It's not a terrible film. It definitely has moments of good moments of suspense and terror in it, and it's worth a watch at least once. If you've never seen the original, I would almost do it like you did, Dave. Go backwards. See this one first, then watch the original to see where it came from.
Yeah, and it's hard to say if it always works that way, but I can say in the experiences I've been lucky where I've seen the remake and then saw the original, it worked out for me, but I don't think that's the case for every movie.
Oh, no, definitely not.
But with this one, you're 100% right. It kind of... It gives you the ooh and ah at first, but then it shows you, kind of the perfection at the beginning, because a lot of what makes the first one so scary and so big for what it was it was considered one of the first slasher films. And, this is before Halloween and before, anything that you can think of like that. We had the creepy director of the film, calling as our killer in the original. So good stuff.
Yeah, one of the first holiday horror movies too.
Charlie Brown wasn't really in horror, so yeah, I guess you had it.
Goddamn Great Pumpkin.
Oh. So earlier Brian was talking about candy corn, so I'm gonna roll off that. Another movie that gets hazed a lot, which I absolutely love, is Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to say much about Halloween 2 because I can still appreciate what it is, and I've watched it enough times where I've dulled myself to it, right? Like I like it, but the first one especially doesn't get as much hate as the second one. A lot of people think the second one's a terrible movie, but the hatred that the Rob Zombie's first Halloween gets is people just see it as more of an aggravated movie. It's definitely a lot more violent. There's a lot more in it. It's a lot longer. There's a lot more backstory. But I loved a lot about Rob Zombie's Halloween. From the kid that played young Michael Myers was perfect. I liked the tension that was created and kind of the explanation of why he's just kind of off kilter in the movie. I love the soundtrack to the movie, and I love the cast. And I'm on the Rob Zombie train, and I've always have been. But for me, as much people that don't like it, I love it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, it's funny because when I first saw Rob Zombie's Halloween, I didn't like it, and it took me a few years, but I rewatched it probably last year, and I like it a lot better now. I don't know. I like it because I think when I first saw it, I had the original, in my mind, and I was like trying to like compare the two, and it just doesn't work when you do that. You gotta look at. I mean, obviously it's a remake, but you kind of got to look at it as its own thing. I don't know, but yeah, I like it. I do.
Yeah, I think it gets, like you said, it gets a lot more hate than it necessarily deserves. The first one is not a terrible film, and like you said, I love the kid. I think he's excellent in that movie. Even the way that the pace of everything in the film, it is a lot slower for parts, but when it ramps up, it's great. And I think a lot of people, a lot of the stigma with this is Rob Zombie then is coming off of not House of Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and going right into it. And they're expecting something maybe similar to the way The Devil's Reject is. And I think what Rob, he put a lot of that into it too, in terms of like dialogue. He can give you a lot of mouth garbage when it comes to his dialogue sometimes. But it's not to say that it's not. I bagged on it, but I do like it. it's one of those films that the second one, not to go too much into it, but it ruins a lot what he set up in the first one. That's my biggest problem with it. And for me, it's the first one. If it just ended where it ended, it would have been great. And if you never tried to do part two, I think a lot of people would come back to it more than they have. And I think there's just maybe a sour taste in their mouth from part two. It gets reflected onto part one, where they necessarily shouldn't be, because it does, it does a lot more for it. And maybe we don't need to know what kind of turned Michael Myers into Michael Myers when he was young, but I think that it's worth looking at. And it's definitely a film that, I think everybody should see. But don't expect them to be exactly the same.
Yeah, because, for the most part, it was uncharted territory. So it was really cool to see kind of the childhood of Michael Myers rather than one night as a child. But I know in the original Halloween, they made another version of it made for TV. And it's really cool. If you have a chance to get it, I would say get it. The cover's got Michael Myers on it, and he's kind of outlined in blue and kind of looking over the Haddonfield neighborhood. But they had to, limit down some of the death and take out the nudity and everything. But they extended, or let's say they made additional scenes in it. And there is a scene where Michael Myers is a kid at Smiths Grove Sanitarium, and it shows Sam Loomis standing at trial with the judge talking about it. So it's a really cool deal. And that right there, way before Rob Zombie did anything, was such a cool insight. And it made me want more of, man, what makes Michael the way he is? Like, what else happened in his childhood, And so Rob Zombie kind of showed me that, and it worked really well for me. So, cool.
All right. So I'm not sure how many more we're going to do. I've got a couple more, but one of the ones that probably is going to get me a lot of hate on this is the remake of The Evil Dead. I've gone back. I've seen it again. I remember the first time that I saw the movie, it was on an airplane coming back from D.C., sitting next to somebody. It was not the right movie to be watching next to somebody. And I did not realize that until it got towards the final act of the film. And I was like, how do I move my laptop in a way so the person next to me doesn't have to watch this? But I totally boycotted it with the film. I'm like, no, Evil Dead is great. Sam Raimi did such a great job with the movie. And then there it was like, okay, I was at a 7-Eleven. There's a red box outside. Let me just red box the movie for, $1.50. I'll carry it back with me across the country and just return it over here. I'll watch it. I was surprised at how much I liked it. And a lot of it comes down to some of the practical effects that they used. They overdid it with the blood and the gore, but it also felt like that was like an homage to the original Evil Dead films. I didn't necessarily like the ending. I didn't necessarily like some of the things they did with the character of Ash. Not that they turned him into her, but the reasons for them going up there with her having to deal with her drug addiction and trying to get her off of everything, and then now all of a sudden they've released the undead upon the cabin again. It's still a very entertaining movie. It does go a little over the top just to go over the top, but if you just look at it, if it wasn't called Evil Dead, I think a lot of people would like it a lot. And I think there's nostalgia filters on the original Evil Dead. In my opinion, Evil Dead 2 is, even though that's a remake of the Evil Dead technically, that's a much superior film to the original Evil Dead. And this one, it kind of falls into Evil Dead 2 territory for me. It's a well done film, well directed. Acting's okay. It's cheesy at parts, but it's definitely a film that I absolutely love.
Yeah, no, I think the Evil Dead remake is a great film. It's got good practical effects. It's got good acting, good tension, good suspense. I think that for the most part, people do like it. I think. I don't know. I haven't really heard too many people talk bad about it, really.
Yeah, I think the only pushback I ever hear is from the die-hard fans of Evil Dead, and they'll like, nothing's better than Part 2, and Army of Darkness is great. And I'm like, yeah. For me, it's actually my favorite out of all the Evil Dead. The first one, the second one, the Army, the TV show. I love this one, and it's because it's over the top, like you said. It's like the bloodiest movie of all time. I love that girl. I love that director. What they did with this movie and Don't Breathe. I mean, they're a phenomenal duo. And I love just like when she has like the dilated eyes and she's, just whispering and she's so creepy, and all the grotesque scenes in here. And then you had the John Lennon hippie friend guy who's reading the book and launches everything off. For me, it really worked. So I didn't put it on my guilt or pleasure list because I guess in my opinion, I thought it was even better than considered a guilty pleasure. But you are right. I mean, you might get some pushback on that. Maybe not as much as me because I said it's better than all of them put together. But So.
Good. I'm so glad that you said that.
That's at Phantom Dark Dave on Twitter. Bring it.
A movie that I like a lot is The Howling Part 2. It's Your Sister's a Werewolf, and I know it's not a good movie, but it is a good movie. It's a lot of fun. I mean, this movie, it has werewolves, it has 80s music, it has Christopher Lee in it. It has Christopher Lee wearing those 80s sunglasses. It's awesome. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but if you haven't, you need to.
I have not, so I'm probably going to have to look at this film.
Yeah,
maybe it's even going to become a podcast. Who knows?
Yeah, it would definitely fit the mold for your podcast for sure. But yeah, it's like the first act is not bad, I didn't think, and then it kind of falls apart after that. But yeah, it's cool. I really like that one a lot.
So, I was hoping you wouldn't bring that one up. I haven't seen it. I feel so terrible. I've only seen the first one of the Howling series, and I remember you in the early on Black Cat Shadow episodes, you talked about it, right? You did a review on here before we joined you.
I did,
and that was my exposure to it. And you said those things there. You're like, Christopher Lee's in it, and I'll watch anything Christopher Lee's in. And 80s music's cool, and I mean, your sister. Is there anything ancestral in it? Because if you haven't said, is there? I mean, your sister's a werewolf. I mean, if it's a werewolf,
are there corn trees too? You might as well get that out of the way.
You already said you're watching it. So.
No, there's not really anything incestuous in it, unless her, like the main villain, I guess, in it is Sybil Danning, and if you were her sister, then there may be some issues, but other than that, because you see a lot of her in this movie. There's not a whole lot left to the imagination as far as, So
what you're saying is it has some of the same things from the first Howling movie, because that didn't leave much to the imagination either.
Oh yeah. But this is more gratuitous, I would say, definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
So I still have like 8 more on my list. I'll let you call out the final round when it gets there, because I don't want to mention my one I have one saved for the end for me.
I've got like 20 probably left, but I won't put you through all that. We'll whittle it down to like, I don't know, a few more or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll save that one. So I'm going to get into one that I don't think either one of you have seen, but you've heard me both talk about it. And it's a movie called A Clown at Midnight. And this is a movie that takes place in an opera house that's being cleaned up and restored by a group of high school kids that are doing it as a theater project. And the main character of our story's mother was killed in the opera house. And so while she's dealing with the fact that she's at this opera house for the first time since the incident, and our killer is a clown who returns to kill her and her friends. and it's such a B movie, but it has everything you want in a B movie: the cheesiness, the gratuity, the makeup effects, the practical effects. I love it. It's a movie that I wore out on VHS. It's out of print DVD, so it's hard to find, but Hulu used to have it, and now that Hulu took it off. But if you ever get a chance to find it, I would say watch it, because it's well worth a one-time watch.
Yeah, that was The Clown at Midnight, you said?
A Clown at Midnight. Yep.
Okay.
It was actually written by Kenneth Hall, who also wrote Puppet Master.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So the guy knows how to write a story, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's definitely not a film that I've seen, so it's something I'll have to definitely check out, especially if it was written by the guy that wrote Puppet Master, because that is a guilty pleasure that I did not write down, that series.
There's two people in it that I remember by name only. Christopher Plummer's in it. Big name drop. But then also James Duvall was in it. He was Randy Quaid's son in Independence Day, if that rings a bell for anybody.
Yeah. Guess not.
Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on up.
That's right.
Okay, so I've only got 4 left. I don't know if we'll go through all of them, but picking on here, I'm going to go with I think it was the first Project Greenlight film that was actually created from that HBO show that was from Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and that's Feast. And Feast, I love it. It's very fast-paced. It's pretty horrible. I've always thought about covering this film as well. Just for the intro alone, where the hero breaks, and this is not really much of a spoiler because right there in the beginning, hero breaks in, he's like, I'm here to save everybody, and then the monster just fucking wipes him out. It's fantastic. And they're giving like little subtitles to everybody that's in there. Everybody's getting a trope. And Jason Mewes is also in the film, which, of course, how long does he last? You'll have to watch to find out. But it was, for its time, it's not terribly well acted. It's shot on a budget. You can definitely tell that. I mean, it basically only takes place inside of a bar, with the monsters hitting up every once in a while. But it's smart in terms of a horror film. But I know that not everybody got a chance to see it because it didn't get a theatrical release. It basically went to DVD. I mean, hell, I found it because it was in the old Hollywood video bins when they would finally start selling off the extra copies of movies that they had. There was Feast, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's because my buddies and I, every Friday night in high school and part in college too, we'd go to the Hollywood Video and rent a bad horror movie based upon the cover. And this was when we saw, and we were like, what the hell is this? I'm like, oh, look, I can buy it for like $3. Let's just buy it and take it home. And it turned out to be one of my favorite films of that year. And I think because it didn't get a theatrical release, maybe not a lot of people have seen it or heard about it. But definitely, it's a unique film for me. It's a guilty pleasure for me to watch that.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. There's like 3 of them.
Yes, there are.
It made a few sequels. I've seen the first Feast, and I remember Jason Mewes in it, and I remember how graphic it was. And I'll tell you, that movie really, for me, paralleled Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. With everybody being trapped in one location and all the monsters always trying to come in, and just the dialogue of all the characters and the blabbermouthing. But yeah, I'd seen Feast, the first one. I saw it because a friend of mine lent it to me. So same thing. I wouldn't have came across of it if it hadn't just been put in my hands, so to speak. Yeah,
this was it actually came out in 2005, which it doesn't seem like I could have sworn it came out earlier than that, but. There we are. I mean, it has a...
You were reviewing bad movies way back then.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's like for everything that you say, yeah, it definitely reminded me of Demon Knight. And Demon Knight is probably my favorite, one of my favorite horror movies too, as I was a kid. It was definitely one of the ones where I got to go, or I bought a ticket for it not being 18, but looking older than I was. And I was so excited that I didn't have to have my parents to go see that movie.
It's probably a good thing that you didn't.
Well, probably. I don't want another species to happen.
Oh no. What about you, Andy? Have you seen Feast?
I've seen it like probably back when it first came out. So I remember the beginning when that whole twist where the hero gets eaten. That was really cool. But I don't remember like how it ended.
With a 2 and a 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have not seen any of the sequels on that. Let's see. So we're talking creature features. I'll name off one here that I like that I don't think a lot of people really like. It's The Cave from, I think it's like 2006.
Oh.
And it came out, I think it came out around when The Descent came out, or maybe it was a little earlier. I don't remember now.
I think it was a little bit before The Descent, but yeah.
Yeah, so this one...
Yeah,
this one was about like, these people go in a cave, but they get trapped in there, and then they find out there's like these monsters, and it's kind of a cool twist about like where the monsters actually come from and stuff like that. And that's some interesting like creature design on that one too. But I think overall the movie kind of like, I don't know, I can't remember now if it just wasn't acted well or written well or something. It's probably a combination of those two, but I think a lot of people don't like it. I love my creature features, and that has some pretty interesting creatures in it. So I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, I don't remember too much about the film. I do remember actually seeing this in the theaters though.
Oh, yeah.
That we went and saw it. And I think The Descent came out a couple years later, because this came out in 2005, and sometime after my wife and I got married, we went and saw The Descent.
Okay.
So, and that was in 2007. So I know it was somewhere around either shortly before we got married or after we got married. But I remember like kind of groaning through the movie, but thinking like you're saying, the creature effects were pretty cool. I'm assuming that it's got to be the way that was acting, and maybe the way the character decisions, usually in these types of films where, there's one, they end up in a situation because they're trying to do something, whether it's exploring or there's somebody with an ulterior motive that goes into the location, brings everybody down. Once the monsters hit, everything is actually a fun ride. But everything that leads up to that point is usually groan-worthy. Yeah. And that tends to happen. I don't remember a whole lot of this film, but I do remember seeing it.
So we have that in common. I also saw it in theater. I remember I wanted to see it because Cole Hauser's in it, and I'm a big fan of Dazed and Confused. So I was like, oh, that dude's in it? Okay, I'll watch it. It's Benny with the soul pole. Cool. And I actually double billed it. I went to the theater and watched The Dukes of Hazzard and The Cave back to back.
Oh,
yeah, that was me. That was me when I had no responsibilities. And
I'm done
I
seeing
enjoyed
Daisy
it.
Dukes. Let's see some people get killed. All right.
2 bad movies back to back, but yeah. Nope, I remember seeing it, and I liked it. I thought it was fine. I knew what I was getting into, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. Like, you know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll keep the quote-unquote creature feature, maybe a little more mutated monster. I'm gonna go with a little movie I love because. This is a time whenever it was cool to double stack your VCRs and run the coax between and just record movies when you had blank VHS tapes. And I recorded a movie called Jack Frost that does not have Michael Keaton in it, by the way.
Oh,
it's about
boy.
A convict who gets mutated into a killer snowman. It was one of the first movies that Shannon Elizabeth was in. And I loved it. I actually own it. I have it on DVD. It spawned a sequel from the same director, but this movie just had so much fun about it, and it looks like it's our second Christmas horror movie on the podcast right now, right? We did Black Christmas and this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, give it up for Jack Frost, not the family film.
Oh God, that is a terrible movie. Terrible. You should feel bad about liking that one. I will speak for the fans of the podcast for this one.
Okay, for those who haven't seen it, would you watch a movie where a snowman is attacking Shannon Elizabeth in the shower, and you know he's going to use that carrot nose for something?
Oh.
What? I didn't say anything.
And it happens to be her brother.
Ooh. Touche.
Oh.
Andy, you got any memories of Jack Frost, or did you skip it?
No, I've actually seen it, and I think I liked it. And I recognized it was a B movie, and I remember it was funny. Like, I didn't see it till way later. I saw it on, I don't know, on Netflix or something. But I remember when it first came out, I think there was like the other Jack Frost, the family movie, came out like around the same time or something. I don't know. So like, I remember
like a year later. This came out in '97. Jack Frost with Michael Keaton, 1998.
Okay. Yeah. So like, because I had a friend that went to go see it in the theater, and he thought he was seeing the horror movie, but it turned out to be the Michael Keaton movie.
I was gonna say, like, I didn't know the horror one went to theater.
Yeah.
No, he did go see a horror movie though. After all, that Michael Keaton.
That's true. Oh man.
I like the cover too because it's holographic and it says he's chilling, and then you turn it and it says and killing.
Oh. That's great.
Hey, it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm surprised if it was that bad, it'd be on your show, Brian. Yeah.
Oh no, I've thought about it. Believe me, but I don't know if I have the stomach to go through it again. To be honest with you, well,
it can't be no worse than Redneck Zombies.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no, it can't. So let's stay with the holiday theme here, and I know it tends to be picking from the podcast, but in the beginning, these are films that I absolutely love that were bad. That's how it started the whole thing. But it's the Thanksgiving classic, Thanksgiving. How do you not love a killer turkey going around saying gobble gobble, motherfucker? The first one is fantastic. The third one, quote unquote, is horrible. I mean, really horrible, and I mean really, really, really horrible. But the first one is so ridiculously stupid and funny that you have to love the film. I mean, it was done on a shoestring budget. The turkey is definitely just a plastic puppet. That's where they spent the budget on for most of it. You know, he uses a gravy flavored condom in a scene. It's absolutely ridiculous and so dumb and so fantastic. And that's one of the few Thanksgiving holiday horror movies that you can find out there.
I remember when I first saw this, I was part of this. It was like a meetup. It was like a horror movie meetup, and we were trying to it was like around Thanksgiving, so we were trying to think of Thanksgiving horror movies, and I had never seen this, but I saw it was on Netflix, I think, or something. I was like, "Hey, let's watch Thanksgiving. It's a Thanksgiving themed horror movie." And it's like, so when the movie starts out, that opening, everybody's like, "What the hell are we watching?" Like, Andy. Why'd you, yeah.
Well, and even I think on the box art, if you look on it for the DVD and back in the day, it says boobs within the first 2 minutes of the movie. It's plastered on the cover of the dang movie. And if nobody knows, it opens up on a pair of breasts from a pilgrim. And it's so it's the same thing happened with us because. I think it was like family time, and my sister and my cousins, all horror aficionados like myself, and we were all trying to figure out something to watch, and we decided, Thanksgiving, it's about a killer turkey. But that's when you have the family around when you're starting to play that movie, and that's what pops up first. Not the most entertaining experience, but once we got past that, everybody had a good time.
So I remember I did watch this off of Netflix because I like a killer turkey. And my buddy of mine was over. I'm like, "You want to watch that?" And he's like, "Sure." And I think we had just got done watching Rubber about the killer tire. And so we were already into stupid horror. I'm like, "Hey, let's just kill a tire, kill a turkey. Let's do it." And I have to say, I love Thanksgiving. And I have so many memorable quotes in my head. Predominantly, "You got stuffed." And I won't say that part, but when you see the movie, you can't miss the line. But I mean, it's a killer turkey with an attitude. I loved it. So.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. The so many memorable scenes in it. The scene where he's talking to the daughter of the cop, pretending to be the father. I'm not going to explain why that scene's ridiculous, but it's great. The scene that Dave just mentioned also involves a gravy flavored condom. He finally does say "gobble gobble, motherfucker" with the fat guy, and the way that he kills him. It's fantastic. It was such a tongue-in-cheek comedy horror, that was so well done that it makes me wonder what the hell happened when they went to Thanksgiving 3. It's totally different, and it makes absolute sense. Like, they lost the comedy, they lost the horror. Now it's just a grotesque puppet show.
It's the only time I've ever seen somebody pull up next to a turkey and say, "Pass, grass, or ass." What the turkey chooses, you'll have to see the movie.
Oh man. Well, this is kind of like getting into the sci-fi horror realm, I guess. John Carpenter, he's a man of many movies, and he's got some great ones, and he's got some other ones that may not be so great. Well, there's one that I love, and that's called Ghost of Mars. And I think, I don't know why, this is one of those popcorn movies. It's got Ice Cube in it, and Natasha Henstridge. But it's one of those popcorn movies that I could just watch anytime. It's pretty cool.
Surprisingly enough, it's also got Jason Statham.
Oh,
yeah.
And
it's got Pam Grier.
That's right,
as well. That is a fantastically bad movie. I'm on board with you on this one. For Ice Cube's acting alone, because it's still in the beginning of his acting career. I should say quote unquote acting career, because it still really hasn't taken off yet. Yeah. And I think this is post Species for Natasha Henstridge too, right? Kind of on her rise up, and then this might have been the start of her fall from being in films. But yeah, it's the right type of cheese. It's the right type of. It still has some pretty good, scary set pieces in it, but overall, this is a ridiculous movie.
So, I don't know. I don't really like the movie. I remember I was working at Blockbuster Video when it came out, and I was really excited to watch it. And we got pre-releases, so 2 weeks before it came out, I got to take it home and watch it. And if I'm not mistaken, like, it's so bad I haven't watched it since. But doesn't it have the extreme drop-off ending? Like, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it like, all right, let's go get killed? Credits.
Yeah.
That kills it for me. Like, you do that in a movie, I am done.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can call them creatures, or they're not even really ghosts, right? But the evil entities, the bad guys in the film, I thought looked cool. It was practical. The makeup was awesome.
No, I love the body snatcher aspect of it. People getting, I don't know, infected or whatever. I thought that was really cool. And they do
it's almost a Thing type of takeover, except for it's more straightforward, like you say, body snatcher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so another movie on my list. We recently did an interview with an actress named Jennifer Jostin, who was in a movie called Milo. I love the movie Milo. I loved it as a kid. I love it as an adult. It is not for everybody, but if you want to see a killer kid in a rain slicker with a, a dubbed over voice that is can be as strong as an adult, Milo might be up your alley. It's a bad movie that holds a special place for me because it was another rental that I wore out. It's a VHS tape I've had forever that still magically works. And it just has a lot of really cool scenes. It's basically, a group of kids, group of girls get terrorized by Milo. They all get back together 20 years later as adults. Milo hasn't aged. He starts showing up again. So you get the killer kid in the raincoat. He starts killing them off one by one. Lord and behold, there's one that he absolutely loves and adores and wants to marry. And he was a stillborn that was brought back to life, which is why he doesn't age. And he's evil as hell. And that right there just makes me want to watch it again. But I know Andy's seen it because we did some research on it, but I have to ask you, have you seen it, Brian?
I have not seen it. And when you were saying it the first time, when you mentioned it to me, I confused it for Bad Milo, which is a film that came out in 2013. It is not the same movie. But it definitely is something that is intriguing to me that I've got to check out. So it's something that's got to go on the list.
The cover sells it because he's standing there in a raincoat, and it says in bold print, Freddy and Jason were kids once too.
Yep.
Which is hilarious
the creator
because
of Anaconda.
Yeah. Well, but what I was going to say was it's funny that it says that because there was nothing scary about Freddy when he was a kid.
You never know. Maybe he had a sister he was going after. I don't know.
He was you might be on something, child pedophile right there. I recently just showed a buddy of mine the remake, and they do the extreme backstory of that, and I'm like, oh man, they really made him into a nasty, nasty character, like even more so than the one Robert Englund portrayed, But so yeah, for me, Milo all the way. All
right. Let's go into classic horror territory then, or classic horror character territory. And let's talk Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason, out of the bad ones, that's probably my favorite. Some of the other bad Friday the 13th movies are they're difficult to get through. Part 7 is difficult to get through. Jason Goes to Hell is difficult to get through. It's not as bad, and you get the nice Freddy cameo at the end of Jason Goes to Hell. And then Jason X is a fine sci-fi horror film. That's one of those. It's so bad it's good. But this one, it's the main issue with it. It's still enjoyable in some of the kill stuff, but he takes Manhattan, but he doesn't do it to the last 20 minutes of the movie. It should be Jason takes a boat to Manhattan is what the movie should be. But once he gets to Manhattan, it makes the whole film for me. The way that he deals with the people on the streets, when he walks by the guys with the boombox and they're like, hey, and he just turns around, they're like, oh, okay. I recently saw, and I totally had forgot about this, but when the movie came out, he actually showed up on Arsenio Hall, and the video is making the rounds right now of Jason on Arsenio Hall promoting Jason Takes Manhattan, which just makes it so much better as well. So out of the bad ones, this is one of the ones, it's a guilty pleasure, primarily for when he actually hits Manhattan versus the whole stuff that happens on the boat. Even the way that he comes back is kind of weak. He's, underwater, and the electric shock comes through and brings him back. And then, like we were talking about on Freddy versus Jason, how is he afraid of water here? Where a lot of these things, he's been in water for so goddamn... This one especially, he's following the kids in the boat underwater the entire time. No way he's afraid of water, and that's ever going to do that to him again. But yeah, out of those, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, for me, actually part 5 is my guilty pleasure in that series. I really like it because I know, spoiler alert, I guess, for a 30-year-old movie, but, it's not Jason doing the killing. But I think it still has the feel of the older Friday the 13th, like parts 1 through 4. It has that older style, feel to it. I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a lot of kills in that one too. I think, yeah, if it was just an 80s slasher, I think people would be fine with it. People would like it, but I think because it has the Friday the 13th brand on it, I think that's what hurts it the most.
Well, it's like a Nightmare on Elm Street 2. They were trying to do something different with it. and ultimately it didn't quite work out. But it's like you say, as a standalone film, I think it would get a lot more praise than it does.
Yeah, so I like both of those movies there. I'm a fan of the Friday the 13th series, and I know I am a B movie when I see one, but yeah, you both brought up really good points about each one. The thing about Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, that pisses me off more than anything else was for a movie that had some of the most inventive and creative, and even as far as just practically graphic death scenes, there was a few off-screen kills. And I'm like, why? Why did they do off-screen kills? Like, why did you get blood on the camera? Like, what? Who gets killed with a guitar? I mean, there was silly things about it. But on the flip side, the rooftop scene I absolutely love when he's going toe to toe with the boxer, and like you said, when he's takes out the thugs in the alleyway, and the kids in the boombox, and everything about it. I like Jason Takes Manhattan a lot. I do like it more than First Blood, which is Part 7, because of the whole like Jason versus Carrie thing. I was like, what? And then Friday the 13th 5, I also do like. I'm not on the bandwagon with Andy on being okay with what it is, but he does make a point where it's almost like a Cloverfield thing for me, where it seems like it was a standalone movie, but then they added a Jason twist in it, and it became Jason 5. Like, it almost stood by itself as a perfectly fine slasher film. But my best memory, let's see, if I'm thinking right, is Part 5 has Miguel Ruiz, I think I'm saying that right, from Return of the Living Dead. He's in it, and he's in the outhouse singing, "Ooh, baby."
Oh, yeah.
And then Jason starts shaking the outhouse. He thinks it's his girlfriend, and he's getting all mad. He's like, "Damn it, bitch, quit doing that." And then Jason just, he lets them have it. But they're both notable movies.
Along those notes, there's a YouTube video where somebody has made like a song out of that scene where he's like singing in the toilet. They've like taken his voice and made it into like this song, and it's pretty fantastic. You know, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely look that up.
I will check it out. All right.
Well, yeah, I guess we can kind of been going for a while now. I guess we can kind of like go through or like maybe one more each.
Okay. So the one I saved for the end, I don't know if it made your list, but I think you're both on my side on this one. This is a movie that I absolutely love, and anytime I bring it up in conversation, I have to defend the movie. And my number one guilty pleasure on this list is Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
I knew that was going to be it.
Yep. I don't know how you knew. I love this movie. You have it's ridiculous in its own mind. It doesn't make any sense at all, and it gets away with it. I love the overacting. I love the practical effects to death. I love the slow motion, and regular motion mix that they do with zombie attacks. There's just so much charm to this movie that works for me, and I did the thing where I watched it and I instantly loved it. And then I waited a little while and I went ahead and rewatched it to see if it was just that first time haze. And I still liked it just as much as I liked it the first time. So that's how you know it's a guilty pleasure. You can watch it and then you can bypass the first impression and still like it the same.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I just recently watched it on your recommendation, Dave.
Yeah.
And I like this is definitely like a movie that I could see like putting in my like Halloween rotation, because it definitely feels like a Halloween movie. It's got a lot of atmosphere. And I love like the dialogue in this movie. It's very witty. It kind of harkens back to like older movies with the dialogue. And so, yeah, even though it's kind of a slower movie in the sense that the zombies don't show up until like the very end, I felt like that was almost a plus, because it built up a lot of suspense, because you kept waiting for it to happen, and it just like, it was just built up a lot of tension for me, because I think that's better almost where you don't have, it's better to do it that way than have something happen at the beginning and then nothing happening like throughout the second act and then stuff happen in the third act. Whatever. I think it's almost better to not have anything happen until like the very end if you're going to do it that way. That's just my opinion, but I really liked it. I haven't really. It seems like Dave says that there's a lot of people that he has to defend it, but I haven't really heard anybody. Well, I haven't really heard anybody really talk about this movie that much. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those films I hadn't seen either until Dave asked me to watch it. And I'm glad. And for those that haven't, it's on YouTube, so you can totally just go ahead and check it out without having to do anything special to watch it. I mean, there's plenty. I think there's like at least 4 different versions that you can find where you're not going to have to pay to watch it if you don't want to. But like you said, Andy, it is a very slow burn. The first half, first 2 acts are very slow. And if you can get through that, you get a good third act for the film. And there's a lot of interesting things. The more that I thought about it, when I first saw it, it's ridiculous. I'm going to say that because it's really over the top, especially the character Alan. He's at times like a dick to be a dick. Oh, look at me. You guys wouldn't be nothing without me. I'm the one that's giving you guys the money to do this stupid production where I've taken you to a graveyard that I'm going to try to bring back the dead. Because I think it's funny, and yet he really does it, And then the things that go on with him and waiting for him to get his comeuppance, and the whole section of the zombie part is well worth the watch when you do watch that film finally. But just know that you're in for some scenes where it's kind of like, why is this happening? Especially with what was that one character that keeps talking about pissing his pants or shitting his pants?
It was Jeff, right?
Yeah,
I peed my
so.
pants.
And he says it like 4 times in a row.
20 minutes later, I peed my pants.
I peed my pants. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
See, it's just like the way it makes you laugh is so enjoyable,
But it's so ridiculous. The first time you watch it, I was like, what am I watching? What did you make me do?
It could make for a good, take a shot every time Jeff says he peed his pants.
You might be dead by the end of the episode, or
and then someone can play with you.
And kind of like how many times we talked about incest on this episode, right? Take a shot every time.
Not in this movie, I don't think.
Oh, maybe there's 2 undead people in the back.
So that was my final one. You guys go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Andy. Okay. No, either or. I mean, I've gone through. I think this actually is the final one on my list. This is something that I recently saw. I'd never seen before, and it ended up kind of being a suggestion when I was looking for movies to review. And it's House of Wax, the remake with Miss Paris Hilton. I was surprised by the end of it how much I liked it. I love Vincent Price to death. I love the original House of Wax. I did not go see this movie because I love it so much, and I love Vincent Price so much. But then I did it for the podcast because I was just like, you know what? It's a movie that a lot of people have seen, a lot of people have talked about. Paris Hilton, I've seen her in Repo, the Genetic Opera, and she was okay. Okay.
I saw her in this Green movie.
This one movie, somebody that was behind her the whole time. I don't know what he was doing. She was on her phone, not really paying attention. But honestly, I saw this and wow, it has such a it's loose when you say remake, because really I feel like it's a standalone movie because they changed a lot of what was going on in the original. I mean, the character that Vincent Price is really doesn't get represented, in my opinion, in the film. But from the set pieces to the effects to the gore, that was everything. Just it works so well. Even the soundtrack's pretty great, and it's generic butt rock, but it fits the mood of the film. And they did it just like with Evil Dead surprised me. This surprised me a lot, and how much I like it. And it's a staple now to kind of watch kind of either around the holidays or, hey, you've never seen this before? Well, let me show you House of Wax. Like, honestly, you have to watch this. And it's a movie I would recommend to anybody, even going into it. Yeah, is it cheesy? Yes, it's pretty cheesy. It's definitely a mainstream horror film, where it's played specifically low budget to get the money, get the people in the seats. So here's Paris Hilton. We want to see what's going on here. But you'll be pleasantly surprised at how much you can enjoy the film.
Yeah, I think this movie, as a remake, I think it would have been better named Tourist Trap.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think it definitely is more closer to that storyline than House of Wax.
Yeah, let's get lost here and in this town where we're trying to find help and shit goes down.
Yeah, you got the brothers. One is disfigured, one is normal, and trying to figure out. I guess in Tourist Trap, I guess there's really only one. But anyway, yeah. Have you seen Tourist Trap, Dave?
No, but I know the cover very well because it's one of those DVDs that you used to be able to buy it in the horror section. Nowadays, horror sections, if you can find one at a store, is super small. But I remember I've held that thing in my hand so many times, and I guess maybe it was just Andy, is it a good movie? Because I guess it was one I couldn't really afford every time, so I went the cheaper route.
Tourist Trap, yeah, it's a cool movie. I like it.
Rare.
It's definitely weird, and it's a 70s movie, 70s horror movie, so it's got a lot of like kind of like, it has a lot of weird sound effects in it. Like from what I remember, like the score it's almost like when the credits start playing and you hear the music that goes along with it. It's like, is this a kids movie? What am I watching? Because it's just got that level of like little whistles and stuff, and it's almost got that kind of music, and it's really strange. But
what's cool is that there is a Blu-ray release for it. You can find it for about $10, which isn't too bad. But there is a Riff Tracks version of this film as well. That might be fun to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I actually saw the House of a Thousand Wax. I don't know if you've heard of it. I've seen House of Wax in theater.
That's that remix, Rob Zombie.
Yeah, it's the butt rock, like you said.
I think Rob Zombie's on that soundtrack too.
Yeah, when you were talking about the movie being loose, I thought you were still talking about Paris Hilton. Hold on.
Oh,
hold on.
Hey-o.
I saw House of Wax in the Dollar Theater. I think this was the last Dollar Theater movie I saw, and I don't want to be a dick and say it was well worth my $1, but it definitely was. Money well spent. But I liked the movie. I thought it was really cool, and I think the reason it works is because it's nothing like the original, like you said. I mean, you can love Vincent Price and still love this movie because it's almost like they realize they can't remake it like it is, and so they're going to do a revision of it. And it works for the movie. And how they afforded that cast, I have no idea. You have, Jared from Supernatural, not Subway. Paris Hilton. You had John Abrams in it from, the Scary Movie. Yeah, and then Chad Michael Murray and all them guys. I mean, I still think at that time they were all pulling some serious cash for different TV programs. But
and I think this was also Alicia Cuthbert, one of her first
roles. That's right.
Outside of 24.
That's right. Yeah, I remember her notably from Old School, actually. But yeah, no, I like House of Wax too. I agree with you. It's easily a guilty pleasure. So.
All right. Well, I think this is a fitting movie to end this episode with. And I don't know, you guys may have never even heard of this one, but it's kind of staying back in the 70s here. It's a 70s creature feature about a half man, half octopus terrorizing scientists that are studying, I think in the Everglades, but it's called Octoman.
No, I can tell you right now, I have never heard of this movie.
Okay, I think it's from 1971. Yeah, and it's pretty bad. I will say this.
The but that poster is so badass.
Yeah. The thing about this movie was I remember seeing it on one of those like Saturday afternoon like sci-fi theater things that we had here, like on one of the UHF stations, and that when I as a kid watching it, it was really scary. But so as an adult I remembered that, and I was like, man, I gotta track down that movie. And I think since it's got a release, like maybe even a Blu-ray release from somebody, or but I want to say from like, I don't know, Code Red or Vinegar Syndrome, one of those. But as rewatching as an adult, it's like, man, this is really, really bad. It's basically like a guy in a rubber suit walking around, flinging his tentacles around, and I think he like grabs women and takes them back to the swamp or something. And but it's funny. There's actually like a segment of the movie that's like missing or something. Like I forget what happens, but there's like just like nothing happening like for like, I don't know, a span of minutes at least, in the middle of the movie. It's funny, but this is definitely one that I love, and I know that it gets. I mean, obviously, it's not a good movie by any means, but if you guys get a chance, I would say watch it. Brian, you'll probably whenever you watch it, it'll probably be the next episode that you do for your podcast, I'm sure. But
oh, it definitely looking at prices on it, which I can see. So for the regular DVD, it's about $5, which is not terrible.
Yeah. If
you find out that, but if you can find the 40th anniversary edition, that's going to run you anywhere from $130 on up.
Oh yeah. It's
so, but it definitely. I mean, that just the cover alone makes me want to see this film, because it reminds me of those old, like 1950s, 60s, and 70s, low budget sci-fi. We're gonna, like them, we're gonna just use old ants, to be our monsters, and just have them walk in front of just like Dave did, just walk in front of the screen, superimposed. It just looks absolutely fantastic. Oh, you can also find a German version of it for $87, by the way.
I just found it on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, there you go.
It's on YouTube. It's broken up into 8 segments, but each segment, it's labeled 1 of 8, 2 of 8, and they're about 10 minutes each. So if you want to just see if you like it, and then turn around and buy the DVD, there you go.
It's been a really fun conversation, and so I hope you guys listeners enjoyed it, and us sharing some of our guilty pleasures with you guys, and having Brian's Terrible Terror podcast join us. And Brian, why don't you share with the listeners where they can find your podcast, where they can find out, keep up with all the things that are going on with you.
So I'm most active on my Twitter. It's T_T_podcast. There's also a Facebook page, Terrible Terror Podcast, just on Facebook, as well as Instagram. You can find me there, all those fun places. But, subscribe to the show. We're on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, all those fun places. I guess you have to say Apple Podcasts now, not iTunes. I keep making that mistake. But yeah, Google Play, all those places you can find it. It's a bi-weekly, I guess that's how you say it, podcast. So every other week I put out an episode. The one before the one that was just released was with Dave. We did Freddy versus Jason. I've done like things like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is another guilty pleasure of mine. I guess some people would call it like that, but screw it. That's like one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So I'm not going to put it as a guilty pleasure, because there's nothing to be guilty about loving that movie. But the 2-year show is coming up soon. That'll be in September. The episode just released, like Dave said earlier, was Redneck Zombies. That was a chore to get through. Not so much the podcast, but the movie, just because it just gets so weird in so many different places. And even though it's released by Trauma, it's still not like that. Doesn't have that Trauma charm that I love so much of something like Poltergeist, or even The Toxic Avenger, or Class of Nukem High. Where there's still something there, even if it can be ridiculous. And then I think the next episode that'll be done, I'm gonna try to do Death Note when it releases. So this is I do the show almost kind of like a South Park style. They do the 6 days to air. I do something kind of similar, with it with my schedule. So this one is going to be really tough because it's basically going to be about a 10-hour turnaround from watching the movie when I get home from work to getting all the audio and then releasing an episode. So should be pretty fun though. I don't necessarily have high hopes for that movie, though I love me some Willem Dafoe voice, and that should be at least an entertaining part of the movie.
Oh yeah.
So are you going to watch it on an airplane?
No, I'm not going to watch it on an airplane. I'm going to sit my fat ass down on a couch, watch it on the TV.
I'm going to also assist on that plug. A lot of people do follow me on Twitter, and we do conversations there. And if you follow me, you see that I talk with Brian and Terrible Tara a lot. And check out his podcast because it's really cool. Yeah, he's it's a solo podcast where he'll sit there and dissect a movie from beginning to end, and it's really cool because you can see some of your favorite movies that maybe you haven't seen in a while. And if you have the drive time, it's almost like watching the movie again. He puts a little trailers in there and some really cool audio clips. And then on the flip side, sometimes if there's a movie that you've avoided, but you want to know what it's about, and necessarily you don't want to spend the time to watch the movie, you could check out his podcast because he's able to paint a picture and really kind of give you deep mindset and what the movie's about. And who knows, you may be in a situation like myself where after he talks about it, it makes you want to see it, and you kind of know what you're getting into. So definitely subscribe and check that out too.
All right, and for Black Cat Shadow, you can find us on www.blackcatshadow.com. You can find all of our episodes, all of the links to all of our shows and all the various media outlets, and also the link to our eBay movie store. And if you like to, we'd love to hear some of your guilty pleasures. So you can send us an email with those at blackcatpodcast@gmail.com. And we are also on Twitter at blackcatpodcast and on Facebook and Horror Amino as well. I just like to post, me and Dakota are primarily the ones posting on Facebook, just random stuff usually. I post on Horror Amino every once in a while, mainly just about the show updates, the episode posts. But
and I post about incest. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
just playing.
So remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you. You may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.